If we are going to learn about the Earth, the best way is to do it to the start the story from the beginning. We want to know about the history of Earth from its formation until present day so that we have the proper context as we learn about all kinds of geological structure throughout this series. Instead, let's just start the precise time period that Earth first formed, estimated around 4.57 billion years ago. How do we get from then to now? First, some terminology. In order to understand the timescale that Earth operates and geologists came up with, a way to break down 4.57 years of Earth existence is to smaller chunk, called eons. There are four eons. There are Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic, Phanerozoic. In the earliest day Earth history from 4.54 billion to 4 billion years ago, Earth would have been unrecognizable to us. It was a hostile place with no continents, active volcanism, and frequent asteroid impact. The geologic timescale is timeline that illustrates Earth history based on geologic event and life form. This is a system that chronologically relates geological strata to time. The table of geologic periods presented here agree with the nomenclature, dates, and standard color codes set by International Commission of Stratigraphy. The eon is the largest time span of the geologic time scale. The geologic time scale is divided into two eons. We have the Precambrian eon, which refers to the earliest part of Earth history, and the Phanerozoic eon, which is the current geologic eon in the geologic time scale. The Precambrian eon is divided into three eons: the Hadean eon, the Archean eon, and the Proterozoic eon. The Hadean eon occurred 4.6 billion to 4 billion years ago. During this time, the solar system was forming within a cloud of gas and dust known as the solar nebula, which eventually spawned planets, moon, and etc. During this time, the Earth started cooling and the outer edge of the planet solidified from a molten lava to a solid crust. Water rained from the atmosphere and created oceans. The Archean eon started between 4 billion and 2.5 billion years ago. The first form of life on our planet was created in the ocean. Exactly when on how it happened is unknown, but microfossils of this time indicate the life began in the ocean about 3.5 billion to 2.8 billion. By the end of Archean ocean, the ocean floor was covered in a living mat of bacterial life. Proterozoic eon, also called the Age of Hidden Life, started 2.5 billion years ago. In this time, enough shield rock had formed to start recognizable geologic processes such as plate tectonics. Proterozoic eon contained many definite traces of primitive life forms. The fossils remain of bacteria and blue-green algae as well as the first oxygen-dependent animals. The next eon is the Phanerozoic eon, the time in which abundant animal and plant life has existed. The next eon is the Phanerozoic eon.
The Phanerozoic eon is subdivided into three eras. We have the Paleozoic era, the Mesozoic era, and the Cenozoic era. The Paleozoic era ran from about 542 million years ago to 251 million years ago. Paleozoic era began with the breakup of one supercontinent and the formation of another. Because of this, plants became widespread. This era is divided into 6 periods of time. We have the Cambrian period, the Ordovician period, the Silurian period, Devonian period, Carboniferous period, and Permian period. This era has also been called the Age of Reptiles and Age of Dinosaurs. The Mesozoic era was roughly 65 million years ago to 250 million years ago. Let's see several highlights of this era. The Mesozoic era began after a mass extinction. The shape of the continents looked different. At the beginning of this era, there was a supercontinent called Pangaea. Over time, the supercontinent broke apart and the continent started drifting apart. The climate was warmer today. The first mammals appear but are very small, and they don't begin to thrive until the Cenozoic era. Dinosaurs also appear and begin to scatter and prosper. The dinosaurs' population peaks during this era. However, at the end of this era, the dinosaurs die off. The first birds appear and begin to scatter throughout the world. The dominant plant is a cone-bearing tree and plants era. Paleozoic era lasted between 544 to 245 million years ago. Paleozoic means ancient earth and is part of the Phanerozoic Eon along with the Cenozoic and Mesozoic eras. Let's see some highlights of this era. Early during Paleozoic era, trilobites, echinoderms, and other marine invertebrates, such as coral, dominated the oceans. Jellyfish also lived during this era. Eventually, sharks and other bony fish appeared. However, as time passed, life did not remain in the sea. Land plants began to appear, such as ferns and some trees later during this era. Life was also crawling out of the ocean. The first vertebrates appeared. Among these vertebrates was a tetrapod, which was a vertebrate that could live on land. Other vertebrates would appear, including snakes, crocodiles, reptiles, and insects. Scattered throughout the world, and amphibians appeared.
Ushering in an explosion of life on Earth. This Cambrian explosion included the evolution of arthropods, the ancestors of today's insects and crustaceans, and coordinates animals with rudimentary spinal cords. Next is the Ordovician period, which is occurred 45 million years ago. This period marked in the fossil by an abundance of marine invertebrates. Perhaps the most famous of these invertebrates was the trilobite, an armored arthropod that scuttled around the seafloor for about 270 million years before going extinct. Next is the Silurian period, which occurred 443 million to 416 million years ago. This period saw the spread of jawless fish throughout the seas. Mollusks and corals thrived in the oceans and land, the first undisputed evidence of terrestrial life. This was the time when plants evolved, though they most likely did not yet have leaves or vascular tissue to sip water and nutrients. Next is the Carboniferous period, 259 million to 299 million years ago. Long before birds evolved, tetrapods began laying eggs on land for the first time during this period, allowing them to break away from an amphibious lifestyle. Tetrapods were becoming more specialized, and two new groups of animals evolved. The first were marine reptiles, including lizards and snakes. The second were the archosaurs, which would give rise to crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds. During the Carboniferous period, the last of the Paleozoic era is the Permian period, which occurred 299 million to 259 million years ago. This period would end with the largest mass extinction ever, the Permian extinction. Before the Permian mass extinction, throughout the warm system with life, coral reefs flourished, providing shelter for fish and shell creatures such as notheliods and ammonites. Modern conifers and ginkgo trees evolved on land. Terrestrial vertebrates evolved to become herbivores, taking advantage of the new plant life that had colonized the land. The Earth first, we have the Triassic period, which occurred 252 million to 200 million years ago. This period saw the rise of reptiles and the first dinosaurs. Next is the Jurassic period, which occurred 200 million to 145 million years ago. This period marked the presence of dinosaurs.
As we reach the end of our documentary, we uncover the intricate tapestry of geological timescale from our personal perspective. Who sure, let this documentary serve as a catalyst for continued conversation and action together.